Welcome back to Civil Discourse Now. I'm Mark Small.
And I'm Paul Ogden.
We are shooting at the Indianapolis Museum of Art on July 24th, 2012. Right now, it is hosted, it's like, not host, it's playing host, I guess, to the Indianapolis International Film Festival.
Great facility here, too.
Yeah, really neat facility.
The theater is one of the best I've ever seen. It's really nice.
It's really a cool theater. They had beanbag chairs down in the pit at the bottom. Our guest this segment is Matt Mays. He's a filmmaker from here in Indianapolis. Matt, are you from Indiana originally?
I am, yeah.
From here in Indy?
Yeah.
And Ball State graduate, and the film that you've shot...
And you didn't flee the state after graduating like most people?
I tried a lot. I go out. I still go to California a lot to work on television shows every once in a while, but I've never made the full plunge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
The film that you shot is called The Greatest Return.
Yes.
It's a documentary?
It's a documentary. It's a film about conservation. I think a lot of people have called it that wildlife film in some of the festivals that I've been in, but it's really more about conservation. Conservation of animal species, conservation of landscapes, and then ultimately, which is where the name comes from, conservation of humanity.
It has, as people in like a conversation and talking about their work and their lives, some of the all-stars of conservation. Would that be right?
That's absolutely correct. The genesis of the film starts with an environmental award called the Indianapolis Prize, which was created by the Indianapolis Zoo in 2006, and every 2 years is a $100,000 cash award that's given to one of 6 finalists. And some of these people are this is to be the 4th inception coming up in 2012 of the award, and the people who have been finalists and nominated for the award are the biggest and brightest stars in conservation. Most of them across the board have been in this for 30, 40 years, bare minimum, and all from all over the world, Africa, Mexico, Canada.
And we talked about this off the air. We weren't aware of the Indianapolis Prize until today. Is this something other cities do, or is this something unique to Indiana?
There are other conservation awards out there. Disney puts on a big one. This one is unique in the sense that it's a $100,000 cash award that's unrestricted for the finalists. So it's originally started to reward these people who have really these are guys they're all PhDs or DPhils and have made pretty tremendous sacrifices financially, physically, you name it, across the board to do what they do. And so when it was created by Mike Crowther, the president of the Indianapolis Zoo, he wanted to make sure that they were rewarded for that sacrifice. Now, by and large, to my knowledge, thus far, a lot of them have put the money right back into what they do anyway, but that was sort of the genesis of why it was created.
The title of your film is The Greatest Return. Obviously, people can go to the Indianapolis Film Festival, Indianapolis International Film Festival website and get a link there. Where would they go to order it or access a copy?
Right now, it's only available on the website for my company, MaysEntertainment.com. We're still working on distribution. We don't really have anything secured yet.
Okay, and this is feature length.
It's actually, it's funny, it's just, depending on the festival I've been in, it's right on kind of a weird spot. It's 43 minutes. So it's, in some festivals it's been considered a short documentary. Okay. I think in this one, I don't know, I'm not exactly clear on the category they put it in. I think it's still a short.
I'm not sure, what does feature length mean?
I was
about an hour, 20
again,
minutes.
It's been dependent on the festival. I mean, sometimes it's been 40 minutes or 50 minutes or somewhere in that area. I'm 43, so depending on where we've been, it's been most of the ones I've been in thus far, which have been the Heartland Film Festival, Colorado Environmental Film Festival, and this one it's been considered a short, just barely, a long short.
You're here in Indianapolis. You got the idea because you see all these all-stars coming in for it, or how?
Well, as the producer of the films, when we would go out and produce these every 2 years, go out and do the films for the Indianapolis Prize to recognize the finalists. I've been all over the world twice, 3 times, to work on these segments, and so we have this. And since 2006, we've been shooting everything in high definition, and so we have a really nice trove of really incredible footage and great stories. Every one of these people, they kind of end up becoming these little 5-minute, 6-minute shorts for the purposes of recognizing them for the award. And the Indianapolis Zoo and the prize were kind enough to sort of give me carte blanche to create a story that turned into more of a feature. So I picked 5 of my favorite stories, and then in 2010, when a lot of those finalists came in for the award, in addition to George Schaller, who is one of the kings of animal conservation, and also the 2008 recipient of the award. And Alan Root, who's an Academy Award nominated wildlife filmmaker, was also in, and he's become involved with the award as well. They all came in, and I was able to shoot some new things with them to kind of become the glue to give the entire story sort of a throughput through 43 minutes, and take some of those stories that I already had created, and that sort of constitutes the entire film.
Is this a collection of stories?
Yeah, it's.
Go ahead and explain what the film is.
Yeah, well, again,
I know it's a documentary.
It's a documentary, and again, it's the ultimate point of it is about conservation and the notion of what that means. It's a collection of stories of some of these different people who have a wide variety of backgrounds. You have Carl Safina, who's an ocean biologist who lives in New York City. And you have Ian Douglas Hamilton, one of the preeminent elephant biologists who works in Kenya. You have Laurie Marker, Dr. Laurie Marker, who's known as the cheetah lady in Namibia. You have Dr. Gerardo Ceballos, who is by default a jaguar expert, but really works to create zones and conservancies all throughout Mexico.
I caught part of that. That was part of the film that I watched this morning because I was
that was the trailer. Yeah. So you have all these different people who some of them, before we did the film and before they came here to Indianapolis to meet each other, didn't even know one another, or were sort of somewhat, some of them are frankly a little more famous than the others, but when they all sat down together, and we shot new interviews plus a panel discussion with them, with all 6 of them that they were included in, and it was really, that's become what the glue of the documentary is, because you have all these people who kind of didn't know each other, were sort of aware of each other's work, on the periphery, some more than others, and when they talk, whether they're from Mexico or whether they're doing elephants in Kenya or anywhere around the world, by and large, they all got interested in conservation as young children because they thought animals were cool. And then as they went through school and as they started to, they all came up, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, or whatever it might be, they all ended up having a very similar trajectory in the sense that by the 90s and certainly the 2000s, they all ended up looking at the very same thing, which is in order to protect these animals that most of them are all being threatened by one thing or another, it usually comes down to human encroachment. And wherever you are, whether you're in the middle of nowhere in Kenya, or whether you're in Mexico, or you're in Canada, or you're in the ocean, or whatever it might be, human activity is threatening the survival of species all around the world. And what these guys are probably better than anybody at doing is explaining why somebody who is anywhere, somebody that's right down the street from here who may be having a difficult time just sort of making ends meet, why they should care about that. And the sense is that it's not just, what do I care about if an elephant in Kenya dies? Or what do I care about if, the fish across, halfway across the world don't have a sustainable environment? The notion is that they are all sort of canaries in the coal mine, if you will, for what's going to happen to humanity eventually as we use up our resources.
Well, and I don't think we should have reached a point where we're having to worry about canaries in coal mines, because we shouldn't. I guess maybe
well beyond that.
I know it's gotten to the point where the population is so great and the demands on resources are
it's
so
not getting smaller anytime soon either.
I don't believe so. No, and that's one point, I guess. I don't know that the film covers that individuals can make a difference, but there are these systemic and institutional things that are so much greater.
Yeah, I read a review actually of the film that it played on Sunday here at the Toby Theater at the IMA here, and somebody said that the film might not be for everyone because the notion of conservation is a controversial subject. And I thought, oh no, I didn't do a good enough job explaining why everybody, no matter what side of the coin you're on, should care about this. Because, one of the things that I'm working on right now, the project continues for me even though the film is done. I'm working with a polar bear expert who just actually is going to be the 2012 recipient of the Indianapolis Prize. And he's the guy who figured out that the ice caps are indeed melting. And that was actually responsible for reporting all the data to the Department of the Interior that that they had to list polar bears on the threatened threatened species, even though there's more numbers of them technically than should be allowed to be able to be on the list. But he could prove through science that their environment is gone, either shrinking or in some places totally gone. That's again, whatever, it's irrefutable.
What caused you to get interested in this? Not only filmmaking but also conservation.
Well, I started making movies in my basement when I was 12, and I've never really known anything else.
We would ask what the movies were about.
Yeah, no, please don't. But I make my living as a television producer and writer and director, and I do commercials and documentaries and unfortunately a reality show or two when I need to fill in the holes. But so I don't really know how to do anything else. But what's been important to me as I've gotten older and I have a family of my own, I've just been fortunate enough to be involved in some things that are things that I just sort of naturally care about outside of what I do for a living. This has been a really, really cool thing for me specifically because I think that even if I weren't a filmmaker, I would be finding some way to be involved in it. So if this is, I can't move to Kenya necessarily right now and, volunteer for Save the Elephants, which would be wonderful. But if I can do this and if I can help spread their message, then...
Your family may not like that, or would you move with them?
They need to be a little old. Some of them need to be a little older before we're ready for, anti-malaria medications and things like that.
I get you. You went to Ball State.
Yep.
Were you a film major there?
Telecommunications.
Yes.
So more on the. I've really been more on the TV side of things. When I was 20, my trajectory was going to LA to make movies, but I didn't really know what that meant. And when I said this the other day in one of the panel discussions for Middle West that. The day I graduated, I realized I had about enough money in my pocket maybe to make it to Kansas, probably not a lot further. And so I got a job, and my first job was doing documentaries for a television company back long enough ago when you could still make money making documentaries for television. And I just kind of put my head down through my 20s, and I looked up when I was 30 and went, I've become a television producer.
The technology's changed quite a bit. Would that be fair to say, even in the last 5 years?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, certainly. And I've had to change with it. I make a good part of my living, again, a living, not my films, but a living, doing a lot of content for the web. And I can do it, everything could be in my bag right there. And I could go out and, do a lot of that sort of stuff. When I started, another story I tell was when I was a junior, my third year at school, I was working in the TV lab at Ball State.
I like how you qualified that. My third year, were you on the?
No, I was on the 4-year plan. My junior year, and I had to come in on a weekend to physically move out the analog stuff and bring the digital stuff in, and we had to learn how to use it. And we ended up teaching a lot of classes that semester, as a matter of fact, because nobody knew how to use it.
Well, this might be an off-the-wall question, which I'm sure will be copyright infringement in your industry. I would think with the web that has become more of a problem. Something you put something up, and next thing you know, they're showing in other places. And we're attorneys, by the way, so we're interested in the legal side of that.
Well, I think that it is. I mean, it's not something that I deal with on a day-to-day basis, but I think that whether you're licensing music from a what we call needle drop music house that you can just pull down from the web, there are a lot of people, even professionals, who are taking things from the web because the resolution is so high and just using it. And it's so difficult, as you know probably better than anybody, to police it. You don't really know where that stuff comes from. You don't know. There's a lot of people that are trying to do a lot of work to protect their images or their rights, but so much of it is dependent on people being responsible enough to report it and report the usage.
Keith Richards can spot it because, he might seem like he's dead, but I saw an interview of him one time, and he rattled off half a dozen different people's names who'd put pieces of Rolling Stones works into their songs. He said, they stole me work.
Yeah.
Matt, thank you very much for being on our show. Again, your movie is The Greatest Return, and it's here at the Indianapolis International Film Festival. People can visit the website here and pick it up there, get a link for it, and go to your website?
Yeah, that'd be right, and then hopefully somebody can buy it. That'd be great. I can sell it to you.
Thanks very much for being here, and we'll be back in just a little bit.
Cool.